You want kids to be designing things and learning about it through their own, personal experience. Now, as you go through that experience, it's sometimes useful to step back and to think about it. And that's the best way of learning about the processes after you've done it, to then step back and reflect. In fact, I think this overall process is often one of going between diving in and stepping back. A colleague of mine, Edith Ackerman, often talks about that almost as if it's a dance of diving into the design and then stepping back and reflecting. And I think that the best way for students to learn about the design process is to experience it, but then to reflect upon their experience and to learn about the process through their reflections on the experiences that they've had. I think there are many different ways that people reflect. Actually, there's a former MIT professor, Don Schoen, who talked about reflection in action and reflection on action. And I think both are important, because I do think that too often people are only doing reflection on the action after it takes place. So people will do something and then they'll step back. And I think there should be also happening at a micro level, that as you're doing things, you should be constantly thinking about it, asking questions. Often I'll ask why questions. Why do you think that happened? Why did you decide to do that? Sometimes it's even just asking, what did you want it to do? I often ask them those questions to get them to think about why did this happen, and then also to think about their own process. After the fact, I often will ask questions like, what was most surprising about this? I'll sometimes also ask, what was the most difficult part of this? To get them to think about where were their struggles and what did they learn from those struggles. Because as someone works on something, there always are ways in which the activity differs from what they expected. And I think a lot of the best learning happens when you think about those differences, about how your expectations didn't play out, in the reality of what you created, and getting them to reflect upon those differences, I also think is really useful. So this dance of diving in and stepping back is something that happens over and over. So you're constantly thinking about what's going on to get a better understanding to help you in the design process. So I think the reflection is where you turn the concrete activity into a more general observation that you can apply to other things that you do. As people are reflecting on their work, one problem can be that they get caught up in the details, because you can reflect upon how this particular thing fit into that particular thing and go through step by step of each particular thing you did without stepping back and thinking about the significance of this, of why did this go wrong. So you might just say what went wrong, but not why did it go wrong, or what you ended up doing, but not why you ended up doing it. So I think making sure that in reflecting, it's not just capturing the specific things you did, but stepping back and thinking about the motivations and the lessons learned from what you did.